And then there were four. Brisbane produces a thrilling upset to down the reigning premiers Melbourne, and Collingwood cruises into a preliminary final with a big win over Fremantle. Hello and welcome to the round so far, brought to you by Amy. I am Riley Beveridge. I'm joined live from South Australia by Kane Cornes. Kane, it's been another thrilling week of semi-final action. We'll start with our big story. It's tonight at the MCG, where Collingwood have gone from 17th to a position in the final four.
Yeah, what a story. 90,000 at the MCG. Riley, good evening to you. What a performance it was. And didn't they love it? Look, it was a 20-point victory. It felt like 50, really, with how dominant they were. 24 scoring shots to 14. And right from the start, it was a comprehensive four-quarter performance that Fremantle were a little bit spooked. They knew the pressure was going to come from Collingwood. They knew the way they wanted to play. They've seen it play out all year, but they couldn't handle it at a big final at the MCG with the young group they had in today.
Collingwood set the tempo for this one. In the game's opening minutes, they moved the ball so quickly and just sliced through the Dockers right from the outset.
Yeah, have a look at this handball. There's one, there's two, there's three, there's four, there's five, and then they're out. Like, does any team in the competition move the ball faster than Collingwood this year? And then you get a 2-on-1 on the wing, which means there must be a spare Collingwood player as Fremantle come to pressure up. You get the ball in quickly. Big contest with even numbers inside your forward 50, and Ginnivan goes to work with those ground level players. Their forward line is so even. There hasn't been a standout forward from them. They've had great contribution. And then there's this. So this is they've got two modes of defence. They defend in fast play and they turn the football that way, and then they defend so well in slow play. So you can have it back there, Fremantle, no worries. We'll force you to kick that long ball down the line, then we will win it back. We'll win contest after contest on the wing, bring the ball to ground, and then bring the heat. So Fremantle win the free kick here through Chapman. They're already set up, and then bang, you get to work and you force a really turnover in a dangerous spot. And Collingwood get the goal through Elliott, who was enormous. 2 goals again, 7 tackles. He's kicked 26 for the year. And that's what I mean about how even their forward line is. There's Myercheck, there's Ginnivan, there's Elliott, there's Cox and Cameron. And they're not reliant on one sole focus in that forward 50. And that played out again tonight.
There's a good bit of vision there to show and highlight just how slowly Fremantle was moving the ball, in contrast to Collingwood, who moved it so quickly and really took the game on through the corridor. We'll get to our Saturday star now, thanks to TaylorMade. And once again, Jordan Degoey is stepping up in the finals. He was brilliant in 2018 as Collingwood reached the grand final. 24 disposals, 12 score involvements, 6 clearances and a goal tonight.
Yeah, so he's clearly the best player on the ground. I thought he was, with Darcy Moore, their best last week as well. And he's built for finals in terms of the way that his body is physically built, but also the role that he plays, that clearance beast, centre forward touches as we're seeing here, and then maximum damage per touch. So the strength here, a couple of times he brushes off Brayshaw there, he brushed off Clark with a big don't argue later on in the game. And then this is the area of his game which has gone to a new level. He's brought in defensively as well, and then you get the ball use. So, it's been a tumultuous year for him, and I've been quite critical. That's the one on Clark there I was referencing, and he sets up the goal through Myercheck. But he's come to play and he has rejuvenated himself in the back half of the year and the side. And let's see if he can do it again in a big prelim final and perhaps a grand final this year.
He was awesome against the Dockers, who now enter a period of change, really, and it starts with David Mundy, a figurehead of that club for so long, 376 games across 19 seasons. This, of course, being the last of them. He retires after this year.
Yeah, what a player he's been, one of the more admired players in the game. There's the last goal he'll ever kick in AFL football. He's been such a versatile player, team first as he gets chaired off there, and everyone admires what he's done. I mean, to do what he has done, 376 games, as you mentioned, with flying that far, 3 to 4 hours every second week. I'm not sure that'll ever be done again. I mean, it's been really difficult for anyone from the West Australian teams to play 300 games, let alone 376. So him and Pavlich have done it. It's been really difficult for others. So you've just got to tip your hat and admire him. Not star-studded with the accolades individually, but has had the longevity that I think, we all admire, and what a great player he's been with a minimum of fuss.
I want to ask you about what's to come for Fremantle, because they've been so impressive throughout the year, but they're about to go into a period of transition. So we think they're going to bring in Luke Jackson from Melbourne. David Mundy's already retired. Griffin Logue, Blake Acres, Lloyd Meek, Rory Lobb, they're on the way out. 4 of those 5 players played tonight. How do you see them shaping up going into next year?
Well, it's unusual, isn't it? I do like Jai Miss because he's a forward that they need. Their forward line's a bit of a mess, personnel-wise, and Luke Jackson doesn't help. So I'm nervous they've overpaid for him. I think he is one of the more overrated players that we've seen in the last 10 years with the figures and the money and the dollars that's been thrown at him versus his actual performance, and we'll get to that in the Melbourne-Brisbane game again, but 9 touches. I think their coaching department's going to go through a lot of change. Josh Carey's out. He'll be joining Port Adelaide in the senior assistant coaching role. There's been talk about Jamie Graham as well. So no doubt when you have success, other clubs try and pick off your personnel and your players, but I am concerned about the way that their forward line structures up. Taberner's body has been unreliable, as has Nathan Fyfe. So what is it? Is it Jackson and is it a miss in the forward line next year? And what do you do with Sean Darcy? Because Jackson is really a number one ruckman. They've got some challenges this off-season, and whilst it's been such a great year for them and a big tick and a massive pass for what they've done winning a final, it'll be fascinating to see that the moves they make this off-season.
All right, Kane, we will get to our Amy clangers now. They all came on Friday night. We'll start with this one. So Hugh McCluggage kicks a crucial goal. Have a look at this. 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. The Lions were a goal down. You'd think Chris Fagan, their coach, would be over the moon with this because they had all the momentum at this point, but then the camera pans back to him and he's given them nothing.
He's not happy. He was feeling the pressure down there on the interchange bench. We do love a Falcon here. We love it even more when it's a bounce Falcon. So Dan McStay's pretty good again in his second final. It was great the week before against Richmond, but that hurts. On a cold Friday night at the MCG, one on the end of the nose, that one's going to sting.
All right, we will stay there on Friday night where Brisbane went through to a preliminary final against Geelong, built off the back of a remarkable comeback. They were 28 points down and they flew home in the last quarter.
Oh, what a performance. Their best performance since the early 2000s, probably. That's how significant this was. And not a lot of success against Melbourne. Zero success, really, at the MCG. And this is the big last quarter moments where I felt like a number of Brisbane players enhanced their reputation. We're seeing Bailey there. He's clutch. That man Hipwood kicked 4 and has been criticised this year for his performances. So 4 between him and Charlie Cameron, who was enormous. Hasn't had a great record against Hibberd, but kicked 3, including that big one with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So Harris Andrews was terrific. Here's Bailey again, just a phenomenal player. They got the best small forwards in the comp. Said that to you a number of times this year. Great to see Rayner back in. Bailey, McCarthy, Zorko, Charlie Cameron. There's Langdon keeping the Dees in touch with 2 minutes to go. And what happens here, Riley?
Yeah, he gets pinged, Jake Lever, for holding the ball. As you can see, Melbourne got it back to 7 points and it started to get a bit edgy around the MCG. And then just a complete lapse in concentration. Doesn't give the ball back, gives away a 50-metre penalty. It puts Dan McStay to the goal line, and that ices the game. It was interesting that Simon Goodwin speaking after the match last week, after they lost their qualifying final against Sydney, said that a lack of discipline hurt them, and then they cop one there, a 50-metre penalty that takes Jake Lever to the goal line. Simon Goodwin, after the game, said that teams attacked their vulnerabilities throughout the season. They won their first 10 straight games. They then lost 8 of their final 14 games. And have a look at this, Kane. 6 of those 8 defeats, they led by 22 points or more at least 1 point. 28 points they led by on Friday night against the Lions. I don't know if this is a fitness thing, a mental thing, a structural thing. I don't know what it is, but it haunted them throughout the year.
Yeah, both really. I think it's not dissimilar to Fremantle, but magnified. You win a premiership, other teams come for your best people. Darren Burgess goes to Adelaide. He's their renowned fitness boss. He leaves and you do lose a bit of an edge. I think perhaps you just take the foot off 5% after you win the premiership. You get comfortable and you feel like it is going to roll on. They're quickly realising, and it shouldn't have taken them this long, that back-to-back flags are so hard to win. And we've seen it a couple of times, we know that, but the history of the game would say that they're so hard to win. And if you do ease off, and if you have moments off the field that they've had this year that have clearly disrupted and distracted the side, and you are not fully in and fully invested, and we've seen that. There's no doubt they've been comfortable with where they're at in those games. There's no other way to explain those fade-outs when they've been in winning positions. So we spoke about the fallout for Fremantle. It's going to be significant at Melbourne as well. If Luke Jackson goes, what do they do there? They've committed heavily long-term to a number of their players, including Brayshaw for 6, Oliver for 7, Petrarca's got a long-term deal. So this group is all in for the now. They've got to maximise the next year or two. And, in the back half of the year, they were just an ordinary football side. It felt like the only way they could score was from an intercept mark, backline transition, or from centre bounce And when teams shut those two areas down, they were far too easy to play against.
You mentioned the fitness aspect there with Darren Burgess, of course, going back to Adelaide after their premiership year in 2021. It might have proven the case on Friday night again. They were just killed in red time. They conceded 5 goals after the 28-minute mark of quarter. So look at the time on each of these goals that Brisbane kicked. It just kept allowing the Lions back into games at crucial points.
Yeah, so 2 pivotal ones. That one there with a minute from Charlie Cameron in the first quarter. And look at the lead there Melbourne have got with 5 seconds to go before half-time. It's a completely different ballgame if Archie doesn't waltz in and kick that one. So, yeah, I mean, it's such a game of momentum now. And for brief moments, Brisbane were able to get that. And then they did, just hang in there. And they had some big physical contests. I thought their pressure game really increased. And we saw that the previous week. Melbourne couldn't handle that increase in pressure from Sydney. And that was the case again against Brisbane. And it does set up some really fascinating and intriguing prelim finals with the two teams that have had the week off, considering the pre-finals bye. Sydney 1 game in 27 days. Geelong will be similar. And Brisbane and Collingwood coming off really strong, good hit-outs in finals-like intensity. So it does add an extra element to next week.
Brisbane likely to be without Jared Berry for that preliminary final. He was offered a 1-game ban by the match review officer for making unnecessary contact to the eye region of Clayton Oliver. Now, the Lions have already said they'll challenge this at the tribunal. They'll try and get him off. It was graded intentional. Do you reckon he has any chance of getting this downgraded to careless conduct?
Yeah, I think so. If you've got a 100-kilogram man with his forearm in your throat there, he's not looking to eye gouge there. He's just looking to get him off. Now, Clayton Oliver has dobbed him in, and that has hurt him. So, yeah, I think if Clayton had his time again, he wouldn't have gone to the umpire and said, look, he eye gouged me and sooked and whinged about it for a couple of minutes after and for the rest of the night. So that really hurt Jared Berry. You would have liked him to look after him a little bit more, like has always been done from player to player. So, yeah, I think Clayton would like to have his time off, and I'm sure he'd like to see Jared playing, but that's not a week suspension worthy. That's a fine, and I don't think there was any intent for him to eye gouge Clayton Oliver. He was just trying to get him off him. It
was a flashpoint in the second half where Jared Berry went to Clayton Oliver. Dev Robertson had the match-up in the first half. Jared Berry absolutely killed him in this matchup. He had 22 disposals to 9 after half-time, and he was the turning point in this game. He was the one that was influencing the contest.
He was. It was a really good move at half-time and almost unexpected because Oliver wasn't dominant at half-time. I think he'd had sort of 6 kicks and 1 score involvement, so it was a big move. And, Berry to have 22 and stand up like this in his biggest and best game I think he's played for the club. Now, he was a driving force. And the other thing I just couldn't work out is why Melbourne dropped the tag on Lachie Neale. Brayshaw was doing such a good job. Neale just 3 effective disposals at half-time. They dropped the tag and went with Sparrow and Neale got involved. So you're seeing the defensive work there from Berry. There's the numbers, head-to-head with Clayton Oliver. 22 to 9, as you mentioned, contested possessions and clearances. And the big one is the damage that was done through his influence on the scoreboard. So great move from Chris Fagan at half-time to put Berry on Oliver. Really poor move from Simon Goodwin to drop the Brayshaw tag on Neale.
So when these two sides met in round 23, there was obviously an incident involving Dane Zorko and Harrison Petty. You want to highlight Zorko's leadership, though, on Friday night?
Yeah, so I think after that incident that you mentioned, there was a lot of people critical of Dane Zorko, and rightly so. I don't think he'd been a great example as captain for a while now, but not only did he perform and put his head over the football and make really good decisions with the ball, he was clean. I did notice this, and I loved his leadership on the night. I thought it was a pivotal moment. We mentioned those players that really enhanced their reputation from Brisbane, Hipwood and Andrews and Berry we touched on, and Charlie Cameron, but I didn't think there was a bigger night for anyone other than Dane Zorko. It was a pivotal and influential performance from a captain that had been under pressure.
So Melbourne were 10-0 at one point in the season. They then, as we've mentioned, lost 8 of their final 14 games. Where do they stand for you now going into 2023? Are they still one of the premiership favourites, or do they have a lot of work to do?
No, absolutely. I think they're one of the premiership favourites. They have a lot of personnel in the right places and they've built the list to be for the now. Ask me the question in 3 or 4 years, I might be a little bit nervous because I as you know, that those long-term deals will eventually hurt you. There's no real long-term deals that work out favourable for the club. So they must get it done in the next couple of years. We'll wait and see what a couple of their young players do. Jackson, we know, is probably leaving. Some talk that Cozzy Pickett may not see his long-term future at Melbourne. Wait and see what plays out there. But if they can get Grundy in for Jackson, that's already a win. Grundy's a much better ruckman. Plus they'll get 2 first-round draft picks for Luke Jackson, so that shores up your future. They're in a really good spot still, Melbourne, and I'm confident they'll be around the place again next year.
So the pre-finals bye and the talk around that's going to heat up again. Since it was introduced now, we've had 5 teams go out in straight sets. What do you make of it? I quite like the fact that we're evening up the competition a little bit and making it a level playing field and that everyone's rested going into finals. But do you think it's too much of a competitive disadvantage now to finish in the top 4?
Yeah, I disagree a little bit. I think there needs to be more reward for finishing sort of top 2 or certainly in pole position. After 23 weeks, you fight and scrap to give yourself some small advantage, and Geelong got none. I mean, they played Collingwood on their home ground after getting, being the best, most dominant home and away team. So, and then they get one game in 20 odd days, so it's not exactly ideal for them. So I like the old formula, which rewarded the top 4 teams a lot more than what it does now. But the counter view would be, well, the footy that's been played has been exceptional, and perhaps that week off gives you a chance to get your best players back fresh, and that's the spectacle that we've got, an amazing final series.
All right, let's look ahead to preliminary final weekend and the finals to come. Geelong and Brisbane do battle on Friday night, and then we've got Sydney and Collingwood in that Saturday twilight spot. How do you see these ones playing out, Kane?
I'm excited by it. I think Geelong and Sydney clearly in the box seat. It's such a hard place to go and play footy at the SCG, and Collingwood found that out last time. You give Brisbane a shot if they're really prepared to be dangerous with the footy and take those risks, overlap the handball and get it in behind Geelong's defence and get the ball on the deck in their forward line and do some damage. But yeah, I'm sitting here right now. You'd be pretty confident if you're a Geelong and Sydney supporter.
All right, let's get to our one more thing now, and it does involve you, Kane. Tomorrow morning, of course, you are setting off on this remarkable journey, running from Adelaide to Melbourne, all for a fantastic cause. Take us through it. How are you feeling?
A bit nervous, actually, to be completely honest. A bit overwhelming, the challenge that is in front of me. So we'll finish up at Murray Bridge tomorrow night. We'll leave from just about where I'm sitting here right now at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning and set off for about 70 k's tomorrow. It's for My Room, an incredible charity, a great connection with Channel 9. Every single dollar will go to kids that have been affected by cancer, and their families have had some magnificent corporate support along the way, and now really looking for the people to get behind this. And there's a link on my social media or the social media channels of Channel 9. If you could, spare $5, $10 here or there, I think it's going to gain some momentum and really help families and kids that have been affected by cancer. So I'll be doing the show on the road with you this time next week, which I look forward to.
I don't know where you'll be this time next week, Kane, but it's an inspiring challenge. Good luck with everything, mate. Can't wait to see you go and kill it, and we'll see you next week on The Round So Far.